It's almost just by chance. I would say, most full mixes I run will have maybe 8 loops going at once or something. So just because of that, each time it's almost like, okay, now we're trying. And on the albums you hear it, it's like I want it to be one long composition, but not naturally like drums. It's like these little sections, and they keep moving. So I think each of those little sections you hear on an album will be, just like one mixer set. And sometimes that will be a straight mashup with a melody and vocals, and other times it'll be more just like, oh, this is all beats, and this will be more of me kind of, actually kind of executing weird stuff with beats to kind of transition over. And that's something that's really fun to play around with. Even on the albums I don't do as much live, is just to get a whole bunch of beats in there and offset the phases and just like improvise on the fly and just to hear how it feels, and then out of that go back to what you did and take little loops and say, oh, that was cool the way that kind of dropped. And even hearing samples naturally fall on top of each other, sometimes get natural phaser effects, or the kick drum might sound different if it's distorted or layered. So it's kind of like a slightly organic approach, when you're just triggering all these drum loops and figuring out something, and then you take a loop of that. It happened in a way that's different than actually just cutting it up in a sound editor. So, and that's something that's kind of appealing to me, where it's just slightly a bit more organic. And this is something I don't do live. This is more just at home, and it's pretty easy just to this is just using nothing else. And, occasionally use specific VST plugins, but even the stuff in here, you can make it enough sounds to kind of make an interesting beat. So this is just like a sample run through the DigiGrunge and the Pulse Comb, and if I was to record out of here. So something like this, where I would just record and just kind of mess it up, not even. So if I would just take that little bit and
so that's, you just improvised that and you recorded what you're doing live.
Yeah, and then kind of that to me would be the source of many beats like that. So then I would kind of go through here, and it distorted out a little bit, but regardless, you can kind of go through, and these little clicks or something you could arrange into being that part, from the album. So then I love to just kind of cut up beats by hand in a sound editor. So if I was to just briefly do this, so this isn't a beat yet, but this will be kind of the start, and this is how I just make a lot of the percussion on the actual album. Sorry, I'm being specific about this. So throwing that beat in there. So those are like some electro light orchestra. Just stuff like that is on the album. Maybe not as blatant with the beat, but just like that little beat behind it, I feel like it adds a lot of character, just the little clicks and pops. And so I think that definitely puts a stamp on a lot of the record stuff, and live as well, just the actual, kind of little bits of production behind everything.
It's kind of fine detail, isn't it, that adds that layer of...
Yeah, I think a lot of the time on the style of music I make, when you're going to have these samples come and go and you want them to be cohesive, a lot of times you just want subtle elements that remain there that you don't really even process that they're still there, but somehow connected those two parts. And for me, a lot of times that's just percussion, just having these little bits, clicks, and things that are going to continue rolling even when melodies are changing, and it kind of unifies those segments. So I think, a lot of the processing I do in AudioMulch is kind of, crucial to that whole thing of actually, doing the production that then will kind of tie a lot of the bits together.
Okay, so you kind of get a unified sound overall, is it?
Yeah, I think, just as long as, I just never want, when I do an album, the past few albums at least, I want them to be seen as one piece of music, it's just one collage. And there's many segments, and I definitely build them as little chunks, but I don't want it to be like, you know, this song or an album with 300 songs. I want it to be one song. So ideally, this, you know, the production and, you know, stuff like that behind it will kind of actually tie things together a bit as smoothly as possible.